Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online and Avalon in association with the new Dodge Caliber.
Hello and welcome to Baddiel and Skinner's World Cup podcast.
On today's podcast, we find out the true identity of the ghost in Zinedine Zidane's house, the mystery deepens about Gunter Netzer's chocolate bar, and Nelly Furtado drops in for some in-depth World Cup comment. Let's rock. So here we are in Roach's room, and I should say that Roach has bought a huge great bowl of fish, which he's eating like a sort of Roman emperor as we speak, which is slightly putting me off. I don't know about you, Frank.
No, I don't mind it, to be honest. I'm so excited about England-Portugal, nothing can put me off.
Not even Roach's fish.
Not even Roach's fish. And
we had a lot of emails about it.
Yeah, we had one email, which I thought was extremely negative, from Noxa.
That's kind of a negative name.
Well, yeah, it's spelt the same as John Knox, who was one of the leaders of Protestantism in Scotland.
So you probably don't like him already.
Already, that's put me off.
Yeah.
And it said, blah, 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 right. This is for people who are fans of football rather than England. Do we really want to see the most boring team in the FIFA World Cup win or even progress any further than the quarterfinals? Can I stop you there? Because any argument you've got, Noxa, has been completely destroyed by referring to it as the FIFA World Cup.
Yeah, well, the regular listeners to the podcast will remember that about 8 podcasts ago there was a bloke sitting behind us, of course, at the England-Paraguay game, who said, yes, a German playing like this, they will never win the FIFA World Cup.
Yes, and it's a very bad sign if you call it that. I mean, I thank you, Noxa, for emailing in, but I can't go any further with your email.
But also, who is a fan of football rather than England?
Not me.
Who are those people?
In a way, I love England. I love West Bromwich Albion and England in that order. And
well, football's a long way down the list.
Yeah, exactly. What's football got to do with anything? But anyway, Sepp Blatter will be very pleased to hear you calling it that. And his wife, Fanny, will also be delighted.
Hey, Fanny Blatter. Scolari has been in the news a lot, hasn't he?
In case you don't know what that is, that's Phil Scolari, the Portugal manager.
Scolari has been in the news a lot. I think the thing is that he's a big bloke with kind of these big opinions, and yet he said he didn't want to be the England manager because Gary Lineker said, my granny could have won the World Cup with that Brazilian side. And that apparently was enough for Phil to think, oh, well, if that's what you think, I'm not coming. Now, he really should read Sven's press, if that's enough to put him off.
I like Gary the fact that he sees Gary Lineker as our official spokesperson.
Well, I like the idea, because I wonder if Gary Lineker's granny could have managed that Brazilian side to the World Cup, because my granny, who's sadly dead for a start, couldn't have managed it, I don't think.
I know what he means, because I often think do managers actually do anything. I also think an old lady in the dressing room would be a calming influence, shot of her knitting on the bench.
Yeah, I don't know. My granny, I don't know about your granny. Your granny smoked a pipe, didn't she? Upside down.
One of my grannies used to smoke a clay pipe on my dad's side.
Well, that would have been bad for the health of the players, you see, the kind of passive smoking they'd have suffered from. So that would have put them off.
You can't do it now, of course. You never get smoking managers anymore, because they're non-smoking stadiums.
Yeah, but the impression I get of your granny, she wouldn't have worried about that. And my granny, the thing about my granny is, she was a Holocaust survivor, and her only real close friend was a woman called Thelma Dom. That would have had to be the assistant manager. So it's never going to have worked, I think. I mean, Brazil might still have won the World Cup, but I doubt it myself. I don't know about Gary Lineker's granny, of course.
But he basically he's got a moustache.
Yeah.
So, which I think drew Brian Barwick in, as I thought, we're on common ground there.
Something that Scolari has said recently is in response to, apparently Sven has said that Rooney is the best young player since Pele. And Big Phil, who is, of course, a Brazilian, scoffed, it says in the papers.
He looks like he scoffed.
Yeah.
A lot.
He said, for a start, one is white, the other is black. So that's clearly true. Rooney is an excellent player, but Pele is unique. There will never be another Pele, not even in a computer game. Now, what's interesting about that, he's very literal, Big Phil, isn't he? Because firstly he says, well, they're not the same, because one's white, the other's black. And then as soon as he says there'll never be another Pele, it occurs to him that you could build a kind of virtual hologram of Pele. And some people might make that mistake in a computer game, so you better make that point. Even in a computer game, won't actually be the same person.
No, he's been very thorough.
Yeah.
The funny thing is he's defending Pele there, but according to one of the papers I was reading, this is what he said, because Pele said that he should pick Romario. And
in the last World Cup.
Yeah, and Scolari didn't. And after he said this, which I quite like, because Pele is held up as a great guard in football, Scolari said, Pele knows nothing about football. He's done nothing as a coach, and his analysis is always wrong. If you plan on winning a title, do the opposite of what Pele says.
So effectively, if you want to win a title, don't take Viagra.
Yes.
That's what he's saying.
And don't use MasterCard. Which is what he always says.
Pele.
Whenever he says MasterCard, it sounds like Massacre.
You know
It's
what?
a Valentine's Day MasterCard.
Have we had any other emails?
Yeah, we have. I think you've got one there.
have I
It's
got
very,
one?
very fine one.
No, we like this one.
Hold on, have you got the right one? The Peter Crouch one?
Yes, I have. Now, we're putting this in despite the fact that some people we know we have got a Peter Crouch amnesty.
Yeah, but this is not...
It's kind of nice about Peter Crouch, though, this one.
Yeah, and
It's kind
also
of
it's
positive
not
about
it's
Peter
not our
Crouch.
joke.
No, and it's from Allboy. And Allboy says that his uncle used to teach Peter Crouch, apparently, at school in Ealing. He says he was a nice lad and very bright, proving once and for all that he can't possibly be a world-class footballer. You see, he gave with one hand to Peter Crouch and then took away with the other there.
Yeah, but
That's kind of an amnesty. It's kind of a half amnesty.
It's nice to know that he's a nice, bright lad.
Oh, he seems very nice to me.
Is he from Ealing, then?
I don't know. Is he from Ealing and had a most peculiar feeling?
He probably does rub his head on the ceiling.
Yeah, I imagine he does. Anyway, it's the England-Portugal game. And I have to tell you, I think I know how they should play. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking this, but I'm convinced I've found the right way that England should play.
Well.
Yeah, this is what they should do. Well, and this is what they should do. What they should do is Lennon should obviously play, but I don't agree with people who go on about how Beckham should be dropped. I think Beckham's basically, he's provided a goal and he assisted a goal, and, if we're in trouble, he gets us out of it. So Beckham can't run anymore. You put him into midfield where he can play long passes. You drop Lampard, who hasn't been having a good World Cup, and you play Lennon on the right and Hargreaves behind them.
So centre of midfield.
Yeah,
for
you play Beckham to centre of midfield, Gerrard further up, Hargreaves behind him, Cole on the left, and Lennon on the right. Now, the thing about this is that, I don't know if you ever had this, but sometimes I have an idea about football, and I think, if only I could tell the manager. I'm sure I somehow think he hasn't thought of it, because it's so blindingly obvious that that's right. And I think, how can I get a message to Sven? Now, I have met Sven once. The one time I've met him, right,
I've never met him.
No, it was a Holocaust Educational Trust dinner.
Oh, yeah, how was that?
Well, he was very nice. We didn't really...
small helpings, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it was obviously very, very small. Just one potato peeling, two potato peeling, three potato. But it was well, he was lovely. We didn't talk much about the Holocaust. It was mainly about football.
Yeah.
Because that's an easier subject when all said and done.
Arguably, possibly one he knows more about, but I'm starting to wonder.
Don't know. But I thought, well, is there any way, I can somehow get to him just to tell him that? You must have felt that about West Brom.
Well, yeah, but I once dropped myself in it. This is one of my big guilts in my life, is that I was at the launch of some ITV thing, and Kevin Keegan, who at the time was manager of Fulham, came up to me and said, "Oh, how you doing, Frank?" He said, how's West Brom? I said, "Oh, we're doing all right at the moment." He said, "How's that Paul Pesca-Solido that plays for you? Is he any good?" He said, "'Cause I've heard reports, but I don't know if he's any good. You watch him every week." I said, "No, really, Kev, he's at our level, he's a real class player."
Right.
And whatever you hear about him, he's a really good finisher, and he's got good movement and all that. And he bought him about a month later. I thought, oh no! Why didn't I say he was rubbish?
But what's good about that is, I have to say, that shows some respect from Keegan for you. The fact that he asked you about it. The only time I've ever got close to an England manager and really doing this, as you know, I was a massive fan of Matthew Le Tissier and was always upset that he never got his chance for England. And I met Terry Venables at LWT once. I think it was before a comedy awards.
Right.
He was just in the bar. And I thought, I'm going to do it, because I really believe this very fervently. And it took quite a lot of courage in a way.
He wasn't in Tramp.
No, he wasn't in Tramp.
Okay.
No, he was in the LWT bar.
Okay.
And I went up to him and I said, "Terry, I really, really, really think you should play Matthew Le Tissier. In fact, I think you should kind of build the team around him." And there was a short pause, and he said, "Yeah, that's the thing about football. We've all got our own opinions about it, haven't we?" And then he just walked off.
Yeah. It must be tricky for him now, because,
Yeah.
they must get lots of people coming up to him making very, very crap suggestions, indeed.
Well, that's true.
I'm not suggesting that was one.
Yeah.
But also, he probably thought, I don't come to you and tell you what gags to do.
Well, I think he probably would have done, though. No, Terry Venables.
Probably
I
would
bet
have
he
said,
would have
he's
done.
an all-round
I bet if I'd
entertainer.
done a gig, Terry Venables would come and say, "Yeah, well, the one you should do is this one." Then tell me a very shit old Cockney musical joke.
Yeah.
And then maybe finish with, "She's going to be making eyes at me."
No, it's not. What do you want to make those eyes
I got that wrong.
England play on Saturday, we're off to Gelsenkirchen. I've never heard of it before, my Google isn't working. I asked some Germans what it's like, but they just started smirking. I think maybe it don't exist and danger now is lurking. I looked in a world atlas but could not find Gelsenkirchen. We'll boldly go where no man goes, like a film with Captain Kirkin. There'll be fat ginger English fans who look like referee Paul Durkin, who've been getting drunk in German bars where they don't let a Turk in. We'll get on buses on the front, it will say Gelsenkirchen. But I think we're being punished 'cause the England team's been shirking. They'll take us to some waste ground and abuse us with a gherkin. I wish I hadn't thought of that, it's made me feel like jerking. It makes me wince, I am convinced there is no Gelsenkirchen. They're gonna shave my genitals, I'll have to wear a merkin. They'll make me a sex slave and I'll spend my whole life firkin. Rich women I don't fancy, please do not let Pauline quirk in. I've never, ever, ever, ever heard of Gelsenkirchen.
Hi, hello, this is David Baddiel speaking. I've phoned Karen loads, and she invited me to various things and invited me to dinner with Sven Goran Eriksson when him and the Greville Janner invited me to dinner. Yes, it was very nice. And what I was wondering was, and this is slightly unorthodox, not unorthodox in a Jewish sense, but just unorthodox, which is I'm doing a podcast in Germany at the moment about the World Cup, and I desperately want to get a message to Sven. Basically, I want to get a message to him about an idea I've had about the way the team should play, which he may have thought of, but I kind of think he hasn't. And he's quite at liberty, obviously, to ignore it, but I just wondered if there was any contact that you at the Holocaust Educational Trust had that I could just maybe just text or email or whatever. Yeah, could you check with Karen? I mean, Karen's got my number, I think. Also, I think Lord Janner has probably got some kind of direct contact for Sven. And it would be great if someone could get back to me and, you know, just give me something I could kind of send him a message on.
Sure, well, I'll just make that and get back to you.
Okay, thanks very much.
No problem.
Bye. Okay, well, me and Frank have come on a little trip of Berlin with Bianca, who's from Berlin. He's given us a little tour, and funnily enough, Adrian Charles and Mark Bright have decided to come with us, because they haven't got a proper tour guide or something at the BBC. So it's very nice to have you with us, guys.
We're much more careful with our funding, aren't we? To licence fee payers' money. We certainly wouldn't dream of getting a paid-for tour guide. I know you're going to the Olympic Stadium for Germany, Argentina. You know, I promise you, however many games you've seen, to see that stadium full, you know, with the Jesse Owens Memorial there, you'll just have sort of goose flesh all over you from
goose steps all over it. That's the last thing we want. That'd be terrible. Yeah. Can we just say that we went to a restaurant the other night with thank you very much. We went to a restaurant the other night with Adrian Charles, a Croatian restaurant. It's a little known fact about Adrian Charles that he speaks fluent Croatian. I know that you hate when people do this, everyone does it and speak a language, but would you speak, this is Adrian Charles from, I believe, where are you from? Great Bar, Smethwick. Speaking
in the West Midlands.
Okay, speaking Croatian, here goes.
Okay, ovo vam je Adrian Charles, ja sam iz blizinu Birmingham, u sredinu Englesku. I've got a very poor grasp, but they've got 7 cases in Croatian, and I just don't bother with any of them. I just disguise the endings, just make a general vowel sound.
There you go, Adrian Charles, travelling with 7 cases in Germany.
Croatian cases. I wonder, Adrian, would you mind telling us, it's just a small anecdote that I know that you have in your locker about meeting a very famous person in the lift. Would you mind telling us that anecdote?
This happened 48 hours ago now, and I've told it a million times. Do you think how many more times I'm going to tell this between now and
Just tell it one more time for us.
I'm more than happy to do so. Now, I got in the lift on the first floor, and a bloke sort of went to get out the lift, and then I got in the lift, and I thought, hang on a minute, that's Pele. it was just me and Pele in the lift. But he got off at the wrong floor. I knew he wanted the lobby, but because I got on at the first floor, he thought it was the lobby. I knew the mistake he made, and I just said, Pele. Wrong floor. And it never occurred to me, 'cause I never thought I'd meet him, how I'd actually address him. But Pele on its own doesn't sound right. Mr. Pele sounds ludicrous. And I did go to college with a bloke who could say his whole name, which I certainly couldn't do. So I said, Pele. Anyway, he got in the lift. And then, what's even better, I worked with Leonardo. So Pele and I have got a mutual friend. So I said, I'm working with Leonardo. He goes, send him my best wishes.
What I like, though, is that Pele got off on the wrong floor, because all the great Pele clips, not all of them, but a lot of them, he is actually slightly missing the goal. The dummy, he misses the goal. The shot from halfway line, he misses the goal. He gets off the wrong floor.
I think he was dummy in Adrian Childs. He thought, I'll see if I can take him with me onto the first floor instead of onto the lobby.
I interviewed him once. I interviewed him in '98 at the World Cup, and I was so excited. I took a book and a shirt, and when I got there, I just made it clear that I'm not a reporter. I'm a player who's been sent over here. And he said to me, "What position do you play?" I said, "Striker." And he said, "Oh, I was striker as well." I said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "How many goals you scored?" I said, "Total." I said, "I don't know, about 180." He said, "I scored 1,000."
But that's a complete con. We we looked into this on fantasy football, and to make it, they wanted him to score 1,000 goals so they could have a big party at New York Cosmos. If you work it out, how many goals a season that is over, it's unbelievable. So we looked into it, and they included goals he got for his school team and everything. Yeah, honestly, Pele is a complete con man on the goals front.
Well, what strikes me as incredible about that, Mark, anyway, is that, let's be honest, Pele was a better player than you. I don't wish to break it to you, but he was a better player. But the fact that he needs to make that clear to you in an interview, how insecure is Pele? I scored 1,000, what about that?
They talk us through your goal when we played together at Stamford Bridge a few weeks ago.
I'd like you to talk through it, because I've told people how great this goal is and people don't believe me, but you're a professional player, admittedly no caps for England, but nonetheless, perhaps you could just talk everyone through how good my goal was.
So this is a bit of a unique moment. This is Mark Bright doing some post-match analysis on a David Baddiel goal.
Up until this period in the game, I have to say, I thought the substitute card was coming up for him. He keeps giving the ball away.
Can we just say, Mark, can you just set the game? What was the game?
The game was it's cystic fibrosis, and it's Stamford Bridge, and it's kind of like money's donated, and there's not a crowd allowed in as such. It's just family and friends. And you had an earlier opportunity, didn't you?
A couple of early opportunities where actually I missed very, very badly and got a lot of stick from the crowd, a lot of ironic singing of football's coming home, that kind of thing.
And the crowd we've just established were just family and friends. They must have been bad misses.
But the one we actually scored, I think you went one way, then the other, and there was a curler, wasn't it?
It was edge of the box, curler into the net.
Curler into the net, and I just said, you know what, Zola would have been proud of that.
I'll tell you what,
Zola board, obviously.
I came back to the. I was actually rather overdoing this, celebrating. I came back and Luther Blishett said to me, "Different class." What about that?
That doesn't get any better.
I'm not exaggerating. It was a top quality goal. And you must have been in dreamland.
Oh, I was so pleased.
In case you don't know, by the way, Dreamland is a bed shop in Kilburn.
I did feel like I was there. Certainly was to lie down in it afterwards.
When you snuggle up in bed together at night, does he whisper about that goal to you as you in your little German hotel room and just tell you how fantastic it was?
Well, I can't hear him because he's facing away from me.
Shall we stop there?
You always say that.
So we went to the big FanFest in Berlin, which is a mile-long, great big 4-screen thing in Berlin.
It runs from the
Brandenburg
Gate down to the Column of Victory, which is two big famous monuments. It's absolutely fantastic.
It is. It's really brilliant. It's the best one, I think, that we've seen in Germany.
If you want to if you haven't got tickets for the games, I'd recommend anyone coming to Germany just for the FanFest.
We went and saw France versus Spain at the FanFest, which was probably one of the most interesting games so far.
I enjoyed
the World
it.
Cup.
Yeah.
And one of the things that made this game very interesting, of course, which was sort of in the background, was that Luis Aragonés, which he was the manager of Spain, had about a year ago or so, during a game, had made a racist remark about Thierry Henry, a racist thing. And he was being quizzed about this, about whether he was going to apologise to Thierry Henry before the France and Spain game. And he said something which I have to say I think is one of the best quotes so far of this World Cup. In his defence, he said he wasn't going to apologise because he said, "I have black, gypsy and Japanese friends, including one whose job it is to determine the sex of poultry." Now that is an incredible thing to say, I think.
You've got to give him, though, he's got a wide range of
he's got a very
companions.
He really does. But what does he mean? Have you got any idea what he
No,
means?
well, there are people that do that. There are people that.
Well, I
have to-
read a little bit about. I googled sex poultry at my own sort of danger in doing so, because a
Yeah.
lot of people who check out what people are putting into the
Yeah,
internet
your,
searches these days.
your history file. I was going to say sex poultry,
I know.
sodomised by a horse.
I know it's
Oh,
awful now.
dear.
Well, I'm hoping that Operation or whatever won't misunderstand that.
Mm.
But the point is, Yeah, you're right. I didn't know this. That apparently it's very difficult to determine the sex of a young chick, and they have people who are specially trained to do that.
Well, there you go. But why is having one of those as a friend? Why does that make you sort of broad-minded and non-bigoted?
Is there still a slight racist element to that, though?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I'm worried there might be, because he's sort of chosen a very bizarre and slightly odd job, and saying, I have some black, gypsy, and Japanese friends. I've even got a friend who looks up chickens' bottoms to see what sex they are.
Well, you wouldn't find that out by looking at their bottoms. I mean, I'm
I
no
would be.
expert on poultry.
Yeah.
You're not looking up their bottoms. Not going to tell you what sex they are.
Well, I mean the behinds of chickens, because I presume their sex organs are there, aren't they? Where else would they be?
Well, that's for the expert to find.
You know what I would like Lewis Aragon and his friend to do is determine the sex of Golio, the mascot, because as we know, he doesn't have proper sex organs.
No.
So we could call him in and maybe he could sort that out.
I like to think he's asexual, godlike figure, Golio. That he appeals. He hasn't limited himself to a particular gender. So I don't want his pudenda to be
Yeah.
discovered.
It's such an odd thing. I'm still baffled by the moment in the meeting where they were drawing up Golio, and they went for the shirt, and they went for the boots, and then they said, no shorts.
No.
Obviously no shorts. Why? Why no shorts? It's so odd.
Well, a lion in shorts doesn't make any sense.
And the other thing we liked about the game, of course, was Zizou, who's something of a hero, especially of yours, I would say, came back
Zidane,
and said, I'm still the best.
Oh, it was great, that, because I said to you at the beginning of that game, the one thing I'd love to see in this is Zinedine Zidane look like Zinedine Zidane again. And there were, in the second half, the odd moments.
Well, the goal was brilliant. I mean, I like Zidane as well. It was great to see him score. He scored really well, took it brilliantly.
I was saying to Lauren Laverne on XFM that one thing that I loved him as a player anyway, but when he did that thing when he threw up and then took a penalty against England, it took me back to my drinking days when you just used to throw up on your way to places as like punctuation for life.
Yeah.
And he just didn't even bat an eyelid, just and then scored a penalty.
How many listeners have we just lost?
Well, David Beckham's tuning in,
Yeah.
thinking this is my kind
So
of show.
you told me this incredible thing, which I didn't know about Zidane and why he's playing for France.
Well, it's a wonderful story. He gave up playing for France, you might remember, like a lot of players do, like the Paul Scholes syndrome.
that strange thing that people think, I've had enough of international football.
Yeah.
Something that I can only, not even dream of doing, just like beyond imagination. They just think, I don't want to do this anymore. That's that.
Yeah, well, Thingy did it, didn't he? Andy,
What?
what's his name?
Townsend?
No, it was the guy who used to play up front with Dwight York. He calls himself Andrew now.
Dwight York for whom? For Man United?
Man United, Newcastle player.
No.
Really famous striker.
Andy... No, it's still
I
gone.
can't remember his name. I'm having a senior.
No, I know what you mean. I'm having a senior moment.
He's called Andrew.
Who else did he play for?
He was a star at Newcastle, and then he went to Man United.
Oh, Andy Cole. It's because you're saying
thank
Andrew.
God. Well,
It's 'cause
he insists on
I
being
know
called
that, but
Andrew,
I never
isn't
think
it?
of him as Andrew Cole.
Anyway, I forgot what I was going to say about him. What was I saying about him?
He gave up playing for England.
Yeah, he said, that's it, I'm retiring from international football. But it was pretty clear he wasn't going to be picked anymore.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what Zidane did, he resigned from playing for France, and then he said he was in bed with his wife, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, he had a strange visitation, a kind of a ghostly apparition. He wouldn't say who it was, but he said, it's a person that you know, but you would never expect. I don't know who you'd expect to appear as a ghost.
Yeah, it's 3 in the morning.
Apart from Casper. And I think when I read the story, he said he went into the other room to chat to this person, and this ghost persuaded him to play for France again. Now, he's never said who it was. My guess has always been Napoleon.
It
Because
could
I
have
think
been.
to persuade, you need a big patriotic French figure.
Yeah, did he say that the bloke looks at all like Paul O'Grady, the ghost? Because the French manager looks a bit like Paul O'Grady, and
Yeah,
I think
but
it
he's
might just have
alive.
been. Yeah, but it might just have been Raymond Dominique or Dominette, whatever his name is, with a cloak on, with a white sheet on. quite easily. That's the obvious person, isn't it?
Yes, I think.
Raymond comes into Zidane's room at 3 o'clock in the morning pretending to be a ghost, perhaps dressed as Napoleon even, and convinces him to play for France again. That's the main suspect.
You think it was like a wind-up? Like he'd onto his bed with a bit of flour on his face. He said, "Oh, Zidane, come on,
Not
mate."
a wind-up, a very clever plot to make Zizou play for France again. No, he should say it is, because apparently I read about this after you told me about it, and what he says is that he's made this clear because apparently a lot of people were saying he's only come back for financial reasons and to please these various sponsors. And then he listed this huge list of sponsors: Orange, Canal Bleu, all these people. Adidas clearly got investments in Zidane. And he was saying, obviously it's nothing to do with them. And I started thinking, what, was it like the manager of Adidas appeared at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, you must carry on playing for France, here's the money? But clearly not. Clearly that didn't happen.
If he was an English player and he said, yeah, I'm playing for England. If Paul Scholes said, well, I'm playing for England again because a ghost appeared to me at middle at night and said, you must play for England again.
Yeah, I look white as a sheet, can't you tell?
Yeah, exactly. Look at me, I've never got over it.
I'm so pasty.
Oh, me asthma. And he'd be slaughtered. That's what he'd be. Oh, the stick
he wouldn't get back in the team.
I found it a slightly frightening story.
You imagine he'd have thrown up when he saw the ghost. If he just throws up before he takes a penalty. Surely he threw up before he saw the ghost.
It makes me wonder I might wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and there might be Leonard Rossiter telling me to go back to ITV. My God.
So, more emails particularly on the subject of things people say when they hear footballers' names, what we call football Tourettes.
Yeah, this is what something said on the telly, usually a player's name, and you just have to call out something. And I like this one. This is from Tim Tat. And it says, since watching the World Cup with friends, the one woman amongst us seems to have got Tourette's straight away, with no prior knowledge about football or Tourette's. Whenever Brazil plays and Kaká is mentioned, now I know what you're all expecting. Well, we'll see. And Kaká is mentioned, she always shouts in a high-pitched voice, Kaká! Kaká!
Like a crow.
In the mould of a bird call, is what he says. Sometimes irritating, but mostly amusing. I like that one now.
There's another one here about football Tourette's, and this is interestingly from James Theobald. And I say interestingly because he's just written his name instead of some silly web moniker. James Theobald, I admire him for that. He says, not sure if anyone else has posted that they suffer from this form of Tourette's, but I find it impossible to hear a commentator during Japan's games name-check Tamada without replying, well, you say Tamada.
Very good.
And I say tomato.
Yes, we can't sing it, obviously. We'll be sued. And this is a very simple one, but sometimes the simple ones are the ones I like with the Tourette's, because often they're not you being clever, they're just you being helpless.
Saying
and
things you have to say.
You just can't help yourself. And it says, whenever I watch Everton and former Newcastle left-back Alessandro Pistone, I just can't stop myself shouting, are you pissed, Tony?
Yeah.
And I love the simplicity of that one.
Yeah. I've noticed that there are some things that I just have to say every time. There's a player who plays for Australia, and to be honest, I don't know what his name is, but it sounds to me like Frank Muir.
Yes.
And I have to say, Frank Muir, every single time, and it must be incredibly it's quite irritating for me.
The thing is now that because we watch so many games together, there's a thing you often shout, which people do shout at football games. You shout, man on. And I always say, man on the sauce, which is a sort of a French art house movie with Gerard Depardieu.
Yes.
But it's great that I'm responding to things that you say.
Yeah, it's interesting you say you always say, I've never noticed you saying that. And that must be because I'm so keen to shout man on.
Yeah,
and
you're frantic when you shout
man
on.
I've never noticed you doing that.
There's the thing that you shout that I've not come across before, a football watcher, is you shout, give it, instead of pass.
Do I?
Yeah. Give it. You go like that, yeah.
There's a few.
Give it. Man on the sauce.
Yeah, that's us watching football. So we've had one here I like very much from Socrates, presumably not Socrates. Socrates, he says, one line, says, have you noticed that Mikael Silvestre looks like a butternut squash? Now, I think this is particularly interesting because in fantasy football, we talked about him, Mikael Silvestre, looking like a Tweety Pie at one stage. Because Tweety Pie's got that sort of figure of eight shaped head.
So it's like light bulb type.
Yeah, but I remember you being very keen on that lookalike and me seeing it saying, I don't think it's quite right. But now I think butternut squash was what you were after.
Because what troubles me about this is I hate football lookalikes.
I know, but a butternut squash is quite inventive.
It is. The fact that it's not another person is
Yeah.
good. That's how that's got through the net, in case you're wondering.
Don't be worried about it.
But I'll tell you what I have been worried about, and that was an incident that we watched on German telly, which we mentioned on a recent podcast. Podcast sounds like the sort of thing you'd get in Germany, doesn't it? I'm going to podcast. And it was about Gunter Netzer being presented with a bar of chocolate.
Yeah, we were very worried about this. For those of you who didn't hear the last podcast, Gunter Netzer, who is the main pundit in Germany, got given in the middle of a game, or the middle of a chat about a game, a bar of chocolate by his co-presenter, and it was completely unexplained.
Yeah, and we couldn't understand because it's in German. Gunter looked shocked, and he's German. Anyway, Wolf, who I believe is German, also, he sent in an email and he said, "Well, I didn't see the Gunter Netzer chocolate incident since I had to work that day." Oh, a little bit of a dig. But Netzer and Gerhard Delling, the anchorman, are constantly mocking each other. So it probably had something to do with Netzer previously mentioning that he was on a diet.
Now, I've watched German football television now for some time, and I don't speak the language, so forgive me, but I've never seen anything that looks even like the inkling of a bit of joshing between Gerhard Delling and Gunter Netzer.
No, and also it's not that funny a joke, is it? I'm on a diet, here, have a bar of chocolate, ha, caught you out.
No.
Because actually Gunter put it in his inside jacket pocket when he gave it to him.
Did he? Because I, of course, didn't see it either.
No.
Is that what happened? So
Yeah.
he did keep the bar of chocolate, he didn't hand it back.
Maybe Gunter said, you know, I'm a diabetic, and the bloke said, ha ha ha, well, have this then. And Gunter had to put it in there. But
We did have one more suggestion for what it might have been. This is from Jonah, a.k.a. Chig69, which was, hope it wasn't a bar of dairy milk or Netzer could be in trouble. That, of course, refers to the fact that there was a scandal whereby some Cadbury's dairy milk bars were found to be poisonous recently.
No, was
Yeah,
there?
apparently there was. That was in Britain, I think.
I think we might have to get the
Are you
Times
all right?
lawyer.
Alex, is Alex there?
I am, yes.
Hello, Alex. Is that? Can we
Well,
say
we should
that?
say that Alex has to listen to the whole podcast in case we say something libelous. Now, can we actually say that?
I'm not totally sure, Frank, actually.
Oh, no.
But you're the Times lawyer.
Hang on, but
That's what you're supposed to tell
it was
us.
in the English.
I'm doing some rapid investigation as we speak.
But was it or was it not in the English papers that some Cadbury's dairy milks were poisonous?
I believe there was something like that, Dave. Just give me 2 seconds.
Roach is
Hang on,
looking
Roach wants
very
to say
worried.
something.
It's not poison.
Can't hear you. Get close to the microphone. You're not used to radio things.
Right, it's
You
not.
could save us all a court appearance here.
It wasn't poisonous. It was there was a leaking pipe in the factory which contaminated the chocolate. So I don't think
that'd be
poisonous
my-
is the
that'd
right
be my
word. It's kind
gran.
of a food poisoning thing.
Well, can I? Yeah,
think
food
it-
poisoning is poisonous, though.
Well,
It's still
yeah,
poisonous.
hence the phrase poisoning.
The clue is in the term poisoning.
Poisonous is surely a different term.
Well, it's not fatally poisonous, but it's still
Well, we
poisonous.
don't know that. Food poisoning.
And also, I'm not sure. I haven't heard the end of the story because it was only that 40 or 50 people had eaten chocolate. It wasn't actually proved that it was from Cadbury's, but they'd all eaten chocolate, and Cadbury's found a broken pipe. So let Alex unstitch that one.
Gunter Netzer's
Yes.
broken pipe.
Oh, no.
Alex, do you know whether we can say this or not?
I think we might be on dangerous ground if we go too far down.
Well, shall we say that there was some sort of story that there may have possibly been some sort of food poisoning centred around the dairy milk bar, but there might not be, and it's under investigation, but this was something which was basically bandied around.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very sorry to announce at this stage in the podcast that our regular football comment where we get in a singer has had to be slightly altered because Nelly Furtado, who we were trying to get because she is Portuguese, has let us down. But the great news is that we've got a Portuguese replacement who is Nadia, the winner of Big Brother 2004. Hello, Nadia. I was wondering, Nadia... Sorry. I was wondering, Nadia, how you felt Portugal might get on without their playmaker Deco during the England game.
I don't like bloody Deco. He's bloody stupid black freak. He should have sent him in the first place. When you sent off, he should have got to the bloody dressing room. He just sits on the side and talking to other people who be sent off. Like he was alright to be sent off. He's actually very bad. He let the bloody country down.
And do you think it might weigh on Sven-Goran Eriksson's mind that in the two previous meetings between the sides, or between a side managed by Phil Scolari, he has lost?
Oh, blood, this Sven-Goran Eriksson. I don't even think he is. He was a lovely lady who he treats like they're animal shit. And he goes over blonde girls and other people from the bloody FA. Why doesn't he really respect her?
Nadia, thank you very much. So we're in the rest period of the World Cup now, between the qualifying stage and the quarterfinals.
Stupid, the rest period. Why
Yeah.
couldn't they have had the first quarter-final on the Wednesday, right? And then carried on like that and had given one a day, then you wouldn't need a rest period.
I'll tell
Instead
you
of
why.
having two on one
I'll
day.
tell you why.
Go on.
Because it gives us a chance to look back at some of our highlights of the World Cup so far.
Oh, okay.
And, well, we've had a chat about this, and for us, the highlight of the World Cup so far is actually...
The highlight of the podcast, at
well,
least.
I think it's a highlight of the World Cup, is something that we recorded a Bayern Munich fan saying, and I think Rochi's got the tape of it.
Is he in the British national team?
Speaking of football, Tourettes, that we have spent 2.5 weeks in Germany going, British? That's it, you've expanded it to British.
Doesn't he say British?
No, he says it's a British. He doesn't say the British. No one says that outside of a Colonel Fury.
No, it's stuck with us in the entire World Cup.
It's got so bad that I actually do an impression now of that bloke if he had a dog and it was asleep. You know when dogs dream?
Yeah.
This is the sound it'd make. There you are, ladies and
The
gentlemen.
dreaming Nazi cartoon dog there, ladies and gentlemen.
We're not suggesting, I hope, that man was a Nazi.
No, the dog might have been there.
Well,
Who knows? So that was one of our highlights, and the other big highlight of the podcast so far was we recorded a bit and then didn't put it out because we were slightly embarrassed.
Yeah,
about it.
we weren't sure about this, were
Yeah.
we? And we thought, oh, shall we put it out? Shall we not? And now we think, well,
we've
that's
got to the halfway stage.
Yeah, we think we'll put it out.
Sod
And
it.
that's what we think.
So we were watching Togo, Switzerland, and it wasn't the best game we've seen in this World Cup. We got a bit bored. So what we thought we'd do is go and have a look at Ron Atkinson's World Cup podcast that he's been doing on the internet on a channel called Selfcast TV. Now, he does these, I should say, in his house, in Ron's lovely house, which you think, Frank, is in Solihull, don't you?
Well, he used to live in Solihull, I think, when he managed West Brom and the Villa. So I think that's where he is. Yeah, it looks basically like the house of a bloke in his 60s who's done well for himself. There's plenty of.
It looks like a bloke who's contemplating retirement, but it isn't quite going for it yet, to me. Yeah. And certainly not enforced retirement. And what it's called is Big Ron's Big World Cup Podcast by Big Ron. So you certainly make no bones about the bigness of it, does he? And the first one, Ron made the decision to have the camera very, very close to his face to emphasise the bigness of his face, I think. And I think that's too much, because what he actually says is, Ron Atkinson here, this is the first instalment of my World Cup podcast. Expect thrills, spills, and above all, my opinions on everything. Now, I've watched 4 of these, and you get his opinions on everything, but very few thrills and very few spills. Now, the only thing I can assume is, because the first one has got his drinks cabinet in the background, it might fall over later on. That's what I think.
Well, and then there'll be some spills.
Yeah, then there'll be quite a lot of spills, and Maggie will have to clean them up.
And on the settee, there are a few frills.
Yeah.
But I think that's...
Well, after this first one, Ron, clearly thinking it doesn't quite work in the living room, moved into the bedroom. And he does it in a suit, sitting a bit far away from camera on his big duvet bed, with some fitted cupboards in the background.
And a valance.
Yeah, and a lovely valance. And who shot Liberty Valance? Didn't you spot? You spotted something on his bed.
Well, it looked like a very thin wallet on Ron's bed. I don't know if that's subliminal messaging to try and get a bit of sympathy. I have to say, I can kind of identify with this because we are doing podcasts now, whereas we used to do big TV shows. So we're in the same boat.
Very, very similar. Although I should say that I don't think we weren't forced into it by racism, were we? Maybe we were. I can't quite remember that.
I think we were, because people didn't like you because you was a Jew.
Oh, that must have been it, yeah, that's it. There's a few great things. I mean, Ron does do, I should say, exactly what you expect Ron to do. He says, if you like, quite a lot. He talks about situations, doesn't he?
Yeah, he says Stevie Gerrard's been getting into some great situations.
Yeah. But what... there's a couple of...
Isn't that what Frank Spencer used to do, basically, get into some great situations?
He says, me and the guys were watching. Now, I don't know who those people are, and what worries me is that whenever he says it, I think, so not you and Clive Tilsley, then.
I think it's just Ron and the bloke with the big cock from Coventry. I should explain that me and Dave once filmed a commentary. And God, the football world is a very masculine world. And we went into the dressing room, and Ron was there with like his suit on, drying his hair, or what there was of it. And there was a bloke sitting next to him on the bench, naked, with a massive cock. And there was no comment made. It was just like an all in a day's work. Me and Dave was in a state of terrible cock shock.
I should explain this bloke, I remember, with sandy hair and a moustache. And he was just sitting there with an enormous cock. And
He was about 50, the bloke, or something.
Yeah, and what it was basically Ron and the guys, specifically the ones he watches, would say, we are so masculine, so heterosexual, we can sit around with the gayest image possible and still not be thought of as gay.
Anyway, the man with the giant cock is I wouldn't want him on my Valance.
No, but I imagine that he's a...
I'd like to see him on Holly Valance.
Ron's co-commentator.
Yeah.
Well, he also there was a...
Ron's cock commentator. Sorry, it's
Calm
got
down.
ridiculous.
There was quite a good moment for Ron, though, just happened, right, Frank, which you didn't notice, which is while you were watching the Togo game, down the bottom here, they've got a bit which says rate Ron's podcast, right? And I thought I'll have a look at this because maybe people have been saying whether they like it or not. And I clicked on it, and I gave Ron 5 stars. He did have 4 stars, and I gave him 5.
I think that's probably what McDonald's will be giving him soon. Oh, poor Ron. He can't even be forgiven and be back on the television where he belongs.
I think the problem is that what this podcast makes Ron is it makes him into an anchorman as well. Because he has to face camera, which he never used to have to do, and talk just straightly directed to camera about his views.
Yeah, I never remember seeing his bed on ITV's Champions League coverage either.
Yeah, I always thought that was a mistake. I always felt when he was on, they should have had more shots of his bed. What's Big Ron's big bed like?
I think when the later games happen, like the some of the games that kick off at 9 o'clock and that over here, Ron will be in bed doing it.
with the bloke with the big cock.
And Maggot.
I'll really tune into that.
Yeah, it'll be called Big Ron's Big Cock, Big World Cup podcast
with Big Maggie. Oh, dear. So it's competition time.
Oh,
and as you all must know by now, you can win a Dodge Caliber. Now, someone did write in actually a little while ago and said, you know, are you going to give away the Dodge Caliber that you've been driving in? And we pooh-poohed that idea, but actually...
Because he's so... What, a second-hand car? We would that'd be ridiculous.
Dodge would never, but in fact... It is indeed a Dodge Caliber. Well, we're not sorry about it, in fact, because you should be proud, you people, to receive the Dodge Caliber that took me and Frank Skinner to the World Cup games in 2006.
It might even add value.
It might do. I doubt it.
Our
especially
DNA is on that upholstery.
Yeah, especially not the mess we've made of it. But nonetheless, it's a very fine car, and yeah, the history is in it now.
Yeah, and we should leave some, stickers on it and the flags and all that.
Yes. So anyway...
I'm having the fridge, mind.
You nicked the fridge?
Great sound system as well.
Oh,
it's the best sound system I've ever heard in a motorised vehicle.
Is it really?
It is.
Good. So, as you may know, you have to hear a footballer's voice in this competition and put him, I was going to say or her, but it's not her, into a squad of footballers that we're putting together. And... we've done loads already, and there's some defenders and goalkeepers and midfielders and
on the website, actually, you can actually put them into formation.
What's the website address? What is the website address?
Roadchill now.
2 ways of doing it. You can go to www.baddielandskinner.com, or you can go to www.timesonline.co.uk and click through to the Baddiel and Skinner page.
Yeah, and there you'll find all the details of how to enter the competition. But here is mystery voice number 10.
How could I possibly smuggle drugs through customs at Buenos Aires airport?
So, obviously, it's the big game that we're all talking about, and the man who's going to tell us more or less what may happen or what may not happen is Daniel Finkelstein from the Times think tank, who's on the line now.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right, how are you?
Hello, Finko.
Enjoying the knockouts.
Yes.
Yeah, so am I. So, Dan, let's get straight to the point. England-Portugal, what are the chances?
There's a 51.7% chance that Portugal will win, and a 48.3% chance that we'll win. So it's much better for us that we're facing Portugal than Holland, who would have had a 60% chance of winning. So I'll tell you what that means. I think it means that the most likely result is a 1-1 draw, or a draw at the least is a very likely result, because often when matches are that close, they'll end in a draw, and then we'll have the agony of penalties.
So what are the chances that we will win a penalty shootout?
Well, they're not directly 50-50. It's rather odd with penalties. First of all, the side that's a little bit better, Portugal, does have a teeny advantage because they're better. And the other thing is that there's an away advantage in penalties. In other words, the best thing an England fan can do when penalties come is flee, because you're spooking the players.
Hold on, so let's just make that clear. So you're saying that there's an away advantage normally. At the World Cup, what that means is that we shouldn't be taking penalties in front of an end with our own fans in it.
Absolutely. You look at the Swiss, they were facing their own fans, they had more fans in the ground. I mean, that obviously wasn't the only reason, but they didn't score any penalties. And again, you can see this pattern happening. It doesn't always happen, of course, but it is quite a common pattern, and we found a very strongly statistically significant pattern that penalties go in penalty shootouts to the side, to the away side, or the side that you're not shooting towards.
Full credit, though, to the Swiss and the Ukrainians, because they played one of the most tedious games ever in the World Cup, and then they even managed to have a tedious penalty shootout, which is almost unheard of. But Dan, well, let's not go before our horse to market, but should the unthinkable happen and we got to a final and we were playing Germany, this means surely that we would almost automatically win the penalty shootout because Germany are at home.
Well,
and whichever end they're facing.
Automatically do it. And incidentally, I think that Germany could face this problem before they even get to the final, because they've got their own potential of penalty shootout, obviously, against Argentina.
But then you have to take into account that they're really, really brilliant at penalty shootouts. Doesn't that come into play at all?
Well, it does, of course it does. This is just a bias. So it just tells you what's a little bit more likely to happen.
OK, well, I'm taking from this that because you said that Portugal were about 2% better than us, but they've lost 2 of their main players, that we basically have a better chance of winning. That's what I'm taking it to mean.
Well, look, France lost Zidane in a game, and it probably improved them. You can't always take that.
Dan, I was trying to leave it with an optimistic sign-off, but now you've ruined it.
OK, let's go with the optimistic.
All right, Dan, thank you very much.
Cheers, Dan.
Cheers,
Bye.
Dan. That's it for another podcast, then.
Yeah.
Oh, man, England versus Portugal. Never mind what you read in the papers, and never mind what's happened so far, and the performances have been a bit drab. So what? Who'll care about that if we beat Portugal?
No, I shan't care about it. It will all be forgotten if we beat Portugal, particularly if we beat them spectacularly, which we'll have to play. We'll have to play well to beat Portugal, so that's
but then we'll be in another big semi-final, like when we played Germany in 96 and 90, and it'll be really... And then what if we get to the final?
Oh, it'll be so brilliant. I'm going to get a tingle. Oh, fantastic.
Honestly, it could happen, though. It could happen. And, oh, man, it'll be great.
Listen to the unofficial voice of World Cup 2006, brought to you by Times Online and Avalon in association with the new Dodge Caliber.